Could you fit a year's worth of trash into this jar? Today we talk about the rise of the zero waste movement. I'm Femi Oke.
I'm Malika Bilal, and you're in the stream. Tell us about your trash. It's not often that we ask that on Twitter or in our live YouTube chat.
Cheap clothes, packaged foods, plastic utensils, we use them and quickly throw them away. It's convenient. But as rubbish builds up, more people are embracing zero waste living. The goal is to reduce the waste that goes into landfills and oceans by consuming less. Followers also compost, recycle and shop with their own containers and bags. Taken to the extreme, some households have reduced a year's worth of rubbish into one small jar.
But the movement has its critics. Some accuse zero waste adherents of being elitist because it can be expensive or time-consuming to shop for groceries and household items at specialty stores. Others question the effectiveness of the strategy. They argue that economies thrive on consumption, so until that system changes, landfills will keep growing.
But advocates would counter that change is actually coming. For example, large companies including Starbucks and Disney have announced plans to reduce single-use packaging, and more than 90 countries, including India and New Zealand, are phasing out plastic bags altogether in an effort to be more eco-friendly. Joining us to discuss zero waste living is Alden Wicker from New York City. Alden is a journalist who covers environmental issues, including sustainable fashion.
Also with us is Sahar Mansoor, founder and CEO of zero waste store Bare Necessities. She's based in Bangalore, India, and joins us today from Talpe, Sri Lanka.
And finally, we have Lauren Singer. She joins us from New York City. She's the CEO of Package Free and the face behind a blog called Trash is for Tossers. Hello, everybody. Really good to see you. Malika.
Looking forward to this conversation via our community because they had a lot to say about this. And actually, this show was pitched by a member of our community. So I want to start with a video comment from someone named Christy Lawson. She's the founder of a group called Earth Savvy Online Zero Waste Store. And here's how she's thinking about the topic.
Zero waste can feel overwhelming to begin with because you have to rethink pretty much everything. But once you've established some new habits, you take it one step at a time and it just becomes like your new normal. It's easy. It's a little bit more time consuming because you're making your own products from scratch, you're making your own deodorant, toothpaste and cleaning products, but I get a lot of satisfaction out of doing this stuff. I feel like that the negatives are far outweighed by the benefits of this lifestyle. I feel more connected to the people around me, more connected to the planet, less a cog in the system and more a three-dimensional conscious human being.
Lauren, I love that she shot that outside to kind of reiterate the point, bring it home. She talks about what zero waste living is for her. For you, how do you conceptualize it? What does it mean for you? Are you making your own deodorant?
Sure. So when I started talking about the zero waste lifestyle 8 years ago, it was really cool because I was really the second person to write about it in a mainstream capacity. And as the person that really popularized this movement, I feel so excited that so many people are taking it on and doing different things with it to just create a whole different type of reality that we can live in as consumers and as human beings. And when I started living this lifestyle, there was no rule book or playbook. It was really, where am I using plastic? Where am I creating waste? And how can I reduce that? And the reason I started Trash is for Tossers was to make that process easier for people, to reduce the amount of time that they had to spend to make products that help to eliminate plastic and waste. And so for me, I started with the toothbrush and making my own toothpaste, but now I make a lot of products that I currently use. But the whole reason that I started Package Free, which was the world's first zero waste lifestyle store, was to make it even easier for people who wanted to live a zero waste lifestyle to be able to find all of the things that they needed to do so.
All right, so Lauren and also Sahar, I've seen you do talks with a jar like this, and you say, I've got my year's worth of waste in this jar. Sahar, what did you put in your jar? What is in your jar right now?
Oh, good question. Credit cards, the old ones, concert tags. I used to wear contact lenses, medicines, granola bars when gone on really long bike rides in the past.
I'm just thinking about this, Alden. It's really difficult to conceptualize the idea of recycling so much and being so sustainable that your entire year's worth of rubbish actually fits into a little jar. Is that something that you could even contemplate being able to do? I think for most of us, it feels like a major struggle.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of people, it is a major struggle. Anyone who really understands the way the global recycling system works has trouble conceptualizing this, because a lot of things that people think are recyclable are not. So there's a lot of wish cycling that goes on. Bottle caps, anything that's under 2x2, that gets shaken out of the facility. Stretchy plastic, technically recyclable, most likely going in the trash. There's a lot of things that people put in their recycling bin that are not recyclable at all. And so I think a lot of that is going on when you see people getting their waste down to just a very little bit.
So we have another example of how someone does it, how they make it work. This is Classic on Twitter, who says, I make my own fresh cheese with dairy and glass bottles. It's not necessary to keep things fresh with foil. Put a plate on the bowl or wrap things with fat-free paper or bees wrap. They go on to say on Twitter that we avoid supermarkets as much as possible. We visit the market and small shops, and we take our own bags and our boxes with us. So Lauren, run us through an average shopping trip for you.
Sure. So one of the coolest things about reducing waste and eliminating plastic is when you go shopping to a grocery store, you actually avoid most aisles. So I buy a lot of my produce at farmers markets, but you could go to any grocery store and really shop without waste. It's just going into aisles that have produce, and instead of buying produce packaged in plastic, you're buying produce that's literally just wrapped in what it is. So lettuce doesn't need plastic to be lettuce. You just have to take it home and wash it. And I actually really enjoy that process of getting in touch with my food, using all of it, composting the scraps, and really knowing where things are coming from and where they're going when I buy food. So I bring my own bags to the farmer's market or to the grocery store, my own jars to refill with things like olive oil. But since living this lifestyle, I really reduced the types of things that I'm consuming, which has ultimately led to me eating things like fresh fruits and vegetables, things like rice and beans. So my lifestyle is so much healthier. My diet is so much healthier, which over 8 years has resulted in me having more energy and saving a ton of money.
Sahar, I'm just thinking, the way that Lauren is describing her day, that would be a typical market day for many people who are in the villages in India or even living in a big city in India. The idea that you would actually take a plastic bag to go shopping, that doesn't even make sense. There's something else that you also pointed out that really fits into this idea, this concept of recycling and reusing. And we can often find this in perhaps the developing world, where we may have already lost that ability in the Western world. So have a look here on my computer. This is a Dabawala, and it's described as one of the world's best food delivery systems. Do you want to explain exactly what happens and how this works? Because this is sustainability right under your nose.
Yeah, that's actually my favorite zero waste example from the Indian context. So it's the dabba, which is an 18th century Indian invention. It's a combination of food, equipment, but also a supply chain system. And they've done various case studies, even at Harvard, on the dabbawalas, and the margin of error is like close to nil. And essentially every day, 2 million healthy home-cooked meals are being delivered, employing about 7,000 dabbawalas in Mumbai, in just one city alone. And I think that's a phenomenal example of zero waste. There's absolutely no plastic. There is, it's really kind of the antithesis of the whole food delivery app phenomena that we see today that is extremely wasteful. And I think, to your point, I think going zero waste in India is actually really in our DNA, because the bazaars are so alive. We don't have to wait for the weekly farmers market. There is literally a farmers market outside your house at any given point. So I think a lot of things that we are talking about in the Indian zero waste movement is just advocating about going back to how we used to do things, because kind of in the middle we had Western-inspired grocery stores that were giving you a predicted amount of packaged food. And so that's why we're kind of advocating for kind of going back to your roots and seeing how we used to do it, and kind of embracing those patterns.
I think that though that reinventing the wheel. It's all things that people have done in the past. Less than 100 years ago, people lived without plastic. This is living a lifestyle the way my grandmother did. One of my employees is Indian, and her family is Indian from India, and have said, bamboo toothbrushes, we've been using those since I was a child. Stainless steel containers, we've been using those. Making different meals out of leftovers. They've been doing that forever. My grandmother made her own laundry detergent. So none of this is novel, and people think that it's impossible, but it's totally possible. It happened less than a decade ago.
Well, I think it's possible if you're okay with the fact that, or you remember that our grandmothers did a lot of these things themselves because they were stay-at-home moms. A lot of the packaging that we use today was invented so that women could get out of the household and stop having to bake bread every day and do all of these things that require a lot of time. And now that we have a lot of dual income households, we don't even have time to go to the farmer's market because it closes at 3 p.m. And get all of these unpackaged
I totally
produce.
agree with you. I have a company, I have over 40 employees, I have a dog, I live in a single apartment by myself, and I've been living this lifestyle for 8 years. I think it's totally possible for anyone to reduce their waste with being a woman and with having a single income. Luxury of zero waste doesn't mean that you have to be in a relationship or expend extra time. I find that living a zero waste lifestyle saves me time and saves me money. So I think it's afforded me a lifestyle.
And Lauren and Alden, I think there are people in our community that are on both sides of where
company is very much a result of that. So
right.
I feel privileged.
Lauren, I hear where you're coming from, and I want to bring in our community because I think there are people on both sides of this that can hear both of your points of view, and so I want to share a few of them. Several people in our live YouTube chat right now talking about what you're talking about. One person says, for example, takeout orders from restaurants cause a lot of trash. If you're willing to eat from the restaurant, then eat in the restaurant. Another person says, I'm thinking of bringing my own Tupperware to the Taco Bell drive-thru. So one solution there, but there's pushback here. And I'll give this to you, Alden. Tales of Darkness, that's their handle. I'm not practicing nearly good enough. That's why I'm here in this YouTube chat. But making one's own toothpaste, that seems extreme. And another person on Twitter that I'll bring in, kind of echoing that point there, Bethany says, some people don't have the time to commit to growing their own produce or making their own products. And they don't have the money to shop in zero waste stores, if they even have one near them. Normal supermarkets often have a limited range of low waste options. So elucidating on the point you were making, Alden, but before I go to you, I want to pull up this article you wrote not too long ago for Vox, the complicated gender politics of going zero waste, because it kind of plays into what those two commenters were saying. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure, yeah. So I noticed that most of the zero waste community is composed of women, and I was wondering why that was. And I think it comes down to a few things, is that living sustainably actually has been genderized in a lot of ways. A lot of men see sustainable lifestyle as a sort of feminine pursuit. It's also keeping your household waste down to zero or close to zero is something that is just added onto the list of things that women have to do in order to run our households, right? We're doing all this emotional labor, all this work and planning in order to do the meal planning, to raise the kids if we have them, and do all these things. And then on top of this, now we have to get our waste down to a little bit. And then on top of that, the other thing is that women are still largely locked out of the rooms where these global decisions are being made that are producing more plastic. So, for example, fossil fuel companies have invested $180 billion in constructing plastic production plants around the world, and that's estimated to increase plastic production by about 40%. Now, that is a supply side problem, and all that plastic is going to end up somewhere. Whether it's in my household or if it's not in my household, it will probably end up in Guatemala or Cambodia or other developing countries where multinationals are aggressively marketing their packaged products, and especially places that don't have the ability to process all of this packaging and recycle it. So I think that so far in this conversation, we've been talking from the perspective of people who have been educated and lived in the West, and we're not thinking enough about where the plastic is really coming from, which is about 90% of it is coming from 10 rivers in India, China, and Africa. And if we're really going to address this problem, we need to think about what's going to work there, not what's going to work in New York City.
Guess I want to show you this, and viewers, I want to show you something. In my family, I have a sister and my brother-in-law who are very good about recycling. They started off recycling and did it nicely in sort of layers, and they washed all the packaging. And then they got more and more into how sustainable can they be. Then they started to make products so that they had no packaging around the house. And this is just a little insight into what it's like when I visit them. because I have no idea where to put my leftover rubbish because their systems are quite complicated. Have a look.
Hello, this is our bin and its rules. If you go inside, bags in for 5 weeks, hardly anything in it. Now introducing you to Olu.
Hi, so this is where our cleaning products start. Lemon and white vinegar left in there for 2 weeks. The vinegar is siphoned off, add a bit of alcohol, that is disinfectant. The skins are then squeezed, added to vinegar and a lot of water, which rinses off our plates and the grease. This is our washing up liquid that is soda crystals and Castilian soap whisked together. And a little thing, just in case you didn't know, is in the UK, if you squeeze your plastic and it bounces back, it's non-recyclable.
So I have a confession to make. When I visit them, sometimes I'm so intimidated by their systems that I actually put the rubbish in my bag and I take it out and throw it away when I get home because I don't know where to put it. But the question is, they are very dedicated and they have an amazing system at home. But what difference does this really make to hair, do you think? What's the point?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, essentially, I started living zero waste when I started working with waste pickers in Bangalore. And often the waste picker community, they're migratory, they don't have citizenship rights, they can't access electricity, they're living in blue-collar informal housing, they're also segregated these all types of waste with their bare naked hand. So whether that's broken glass, sanitary napkins, diapers, all of that. And I think, we really need to look at our waste problem because I think it's a social justice issue, whether it is developing countries shipping off their waste to, developed countries shipping off their waste to developing countries like India and China. Of course, now China is saying that we don't want to take any, but also in whether it's in New York or in Bangalore, I think disproportionately they're in low-income communities, whether they're the incinerators or, the landfills. And I think we need to kind of rethink the way we're currently doing things because at the end of the day, it is a social justice issue. Why are we saying someone else's soil and water is less valuable than ours?
When we talk about rethinking, this here from Bethany on Twitter, who says, after around a year of trying to force myself to be plastic-free, zero waste, I realized that it actually wasn't something I wanted to aim for anymore, as it created too much pressure. But the changes I have still made, even if I'm not perfect, those matter. So with that in mind, I want to play a video comment from someone who tries to break this down for us and gives us some tips that we can all use. This is Trevor Thornton. He's a lecturer in hazardous materials management in Australia, I believe, and he sent this to the stream.
Recycling is good for the environment, but avoiding or reducing waste in the first instance is the way to go. That's the preferred approach. So where can we start? Have a look in your rubbish bin. See what the sorts of things are in there. Food waste is a good example. 35 to 50% of our waste is food that we could have either cooked or perhaps not bought at all if we had been a little bit smarter in our shopping. There are lots of other things that you can do. Do you use reusable packaging? Do you take a reusable bag to buy your groceries? Do you need the lid on the coffee cup when you're going to be sitting around having a coffee? It's all about thinking about something you can do and then doing it well.
So Lauren, I want to bring you back into the conversation because for a lot of people, as you heard, this can be daunting and this can be frustrating. So what are the first steps that you would tell people?
So I agree with that. I started living a zero waste lifestyle to align my day-to-day actions with my values for environmental sustainability. My personal goal in life is to create large-scale positive environmental change. And when I started doing this, it was really for myself to live in alignment with my values. And the reason that I've continued is because it did add so much benefit to my life, but I don't believe that everyone has to live this way. And I actually agree with a lot of people. It is inconvenient for many people, but I'm on a mission to change that. So I believe that living a zero waste or low waste lifestyle should be convenient. It should be accessible, and it hasn't been for a really long time. Why is that? I believe business and subsidies are the main drivers of that rationale. And so I'm on a mission to change that. I started Package Free to make low waste living easier for my community and people who have access to online shopping. But I strongly align myself with the fact that every person, no matter who you are or where you come from, should have access to products that are low waste and safe for our homes and our bodies and the environment. I believe that it's a basic human right. And so what I'm on a mission to do is start manufacturing products at economies of scale that make them price point competitive with the products that people are already using every single day, so that it doesn't have to be a choice of economics or access or where you live to be able to have products that are safe. I'm on a mission to make zero waste and sustainability and plastic-free living accessible to every single person. Why hasn't anyone done that yet? I don't know, but I don't think there's any better person in the whole world than me to do it, and that's why I'm so passionate about starting Package Free, growing our company, and bringing zero waste to the world.
Lauren, that's a spectacular humble brag there. You're not alone. No Plastic Waste. Let me show you this organisation here on Twitter. They shared a video that stuck with me. It kind of haunted me. This is Phuket in Thailand. I just want to show you a few seconds of this because you don't know what's going on until you watch it a little bit more. And camera zooms in and that fish seems to be stuck. Wait until you see what it is stuck in and this will shock you. Here we go. This is the reveal. A little bit more. It's in a sandwich baggie. How did that get into Phuket, Thailand? So
I could probably say how that got there, actually.
Yeah, go ahead.
There's a huge problem in the developing world with things called with single-use sachets, and they were manufactured in order to give low-income people a way to buy something that is more affordable to wash their clothes with, and they become extremely popular. And that's what capitalism has done to this problem. And I don't think we're going to address it by throwing more manufacturing or more entrepreneurship at it. And I think we need to go back to advocating to the government.
So, Alden, I'm so glad you said that because, sorry to interrupt you, but I think this is so important. Last month at the United Nations, Prime Minister Narendra Modi made an announcement that was huge, particularly concerning the conversation that we're having here about plastics and sustainability and no waste. This is what he said at the UN. Have a listen.
No more single-use plastic.
As I came in here, on a wall at the entrance of this building, I noticed a call to make the United Nations free of single-use plastic. I am pleased to inform this assembly that even as I am addressing you today, a very large campaign is being started across the entire country to make India free of single-use plastic in the next 5 years.
Sahar, Lauren there was saying earlier she felt that she was the woman to change the way that we viewed plastic and the way that we use plastics. But I think that somebody like Prime Minister Modi, who actually can say we're not using plastic starting from this year,
but then what?
probably could do something bigger.
You ban plastic, but what are people going to do with the products they're already using every day? There are no better options. You can't just ban plastic willy-nilly and expect that all of a sudden people are going to have ways to buy soap, buy the products that they're using every day. It's not one-sided. You need to first create solutions before you create legislation.
All right, Lauren, hold tight for a minute because we've got a few seconds. I want to hear Sahar. I want to hear Sahar's perspective. Lauren, hold tight for a second. Go ahead, Sahar, very quickly.
Honestly, I think it's an ecosystem approach. So I think we do need the right legislation in place. I think we also do need the right manufacturers in place. We need behavioral economists working on how we can design cities and grocery stores that help people, zero waste the norm and not the exception. I think policy, being a policy nerd and that being my academic background, I think that is a huge way in which you can institutionalize things and create large-scale impact. And I think policy in terms of also creating the right incentives for maybe FMCG companies to spend X amount of their money, R&D budget on revamping their packaging or creating tax cuts for enterprises like Lauren's and mine to basically exist and do what we're doing and scale even more, make it more accessible, reduce the cost of alternatives.
And of course, that India clip you saw there, India is not the only one who's proposed this. Janet here on Twitter says, I love this discussion. In Kenya, we bring our own bags to the store. The plastic ban is a way of life for us. Even when buying at airport duty-free shops, we put stuff in our bags, but we can all do more to achieve zero waste.
The bigger thing here is really we need to ban subsidies. One of the biggest problems is that oil and gas is so
That is the voice of Lauren Singer. Lauren, thank you for joining us. Sahar, Mansoor and Alden Wicker, thank you very much as well for being on our programme, talking about zero wasters on the stream. Malika and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care.